Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Transfer Nation videocast and podcast. Today, you are going to get to hear from transfer student, first generation college student, UC Regent, PhD candidate, transfer advocate, and all around amazing transfer champion, Jamaal Muwwakkil. I cannot tell you how excited I am that Jamaal is joining us today. We get to hear a little bit about his transfer journey and also about his transfer advocacy, which is pretty impressive, and I cannot wait to dig into this conversation.
Welcome to the Transfer Nation videocast and podcast. Transfer Nation aims to create a network and community of educators who work with and advocate for transfer and post-traditional college students. Our mission is to build community, transform culture, and empower success for transfer educators and students by sharing resources and celebrating all things transfer.
So Jamaal, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a unique pleasure, and I think a long time coming. So glad to be here today to chat with you.
Truly a long time coming. For those that don't know, Jamaal and I both were transfer students at UCLA. We have had intersecting transfer experiences over the years, and we're really enjoying getting this moment to sit down and get to know each other even better. But I think that you brought an artifact with you, a transfer artifact with you that I'd love to start the conversation with. Can you tell us what you brought to the show today and describe for those who are listening?
Absolutely. If you've ever attended, especially UCLA, you understand that we traffic in t-shirts. And so this is a t-shirt from my very first BBTS, Black Bruin Transfer Extravaganza, right? And so it was hosted back in 2014. So this is a 6-7-year-old t-shirt and it looks it. But every year there's new t-shirts for new events for a lot of the programs that are happening. And this one just really was one of the very first times where I felt like there was active engagement to try to develop and cultivate a transfer community on the campus. I wouldn't really know how important that was until I arrived and engaged with the campus with with everyone there. But this kind of marked a moment where I knew that I wouldn't be like in the struggle by myself. So an important artifact for me to reflect on at this point, 6-7 years later.
I love it. It's true that at UCLA, we really do know how to do a good t-shirt. And I'm going to ask you in a little bit to really dig into what the Black Bruin Transfer Extravaganza is, because it's a very unique and I think, as you said, important moment for new transfer students entering UCLA to find their community and to hear about what community does exist there and what community can be for them. So I do want to hear about your experience with that. But for those who are listening to this at home, it's a great t-shirt. It's really colorful. It's got like the content of Africa on it. And UCLA Future Black Bruin, it says Black Transfer Extravaganza 2014. And it's got a great quote on it. Black power is giving power to people who have not had power to determine their destiny, by Huey Newton. Awesome. Thank you for bringing that today.
Thank you. Yeah. So Black Bruin Transfer Success was an organization on UCLA's campus, I think started by Shadira, who I think is still working at UCLA.
She is, yeah.
Great. Continuing the great work there. And for those who have kind of matriculated through Black Bruin Transfer Extravaganza is like Yield Day, but for this targeted demographic, which are Black incoming transfer students. So it's an opportunity whereby they've already applied, they've been admitted, and now at this point, they likely have been admitted to other places as well. So the University of California at each of the campuses has a vested interest in trying to, for lack of a better term, seal the deal We said yes to you, please, student, please say yes to us. And so to facilitate that, there's an invitation to come to campus and kind of meet with folks that they might relate with, that will convey the awesome opportunities, resources, community, things like this that might be important to the person that are present on the campus, to try to nudge them into making the right decision to say yes to being a Bruin is the logic. And so what this organization represents is that there was an acknowledgement from the institution, from UCLA, that this demographic was a salient and important demographic, such an important demographic and large enough demographic that we should invest in making sure that they felt cared for and catered to, as opposed to like it just in the unmarked sense of everyone else just going to Bruin Day, because again, we have historically a sense that folks didn't necessarily feel as welcomed in the broader Bruin Day context. So this met a need and establishes an example of institutional support to address a need, and is absolutely a step in the right direction, and I think is built into a mighty institution.
100%. I think the other important point is the student run, like for students by students, built for students by students, which I think was such an important part of what Jadera created. And this outreach of student to student, peer to peer, which I know is important to you in your work and in some of the mentoring that you've done throughout your time at UCLA and beyond. So that aspect of this, hearing from the real deal, the good, the bad, and the ugly from your peers about the community and the environment and the culture that you're entering, and your role in that and your voice in that is vital. All right, so we're going to get back to advocacy and community and your experience at UCLA, but tell us, start earlier than that. What's your transfer experience? Where did you transfer to? What and from and to? Absolutely.
Well, it was a long, arduous trip. Lots of turns here and there, like to meet. No, so I'm originally from Compton, California, and I enjoy reminding folks, because I say everyone should rep their city. My city is the best city because it is my city. And if your city is a different city, you should rep that city too. So my city is Compton, and I'm going to rep my city. But living in Compton as a product of the public education system, I did well K through 12. When I graduated, I did, upon graduation, as it was nearing, I applied and I got accepted into some schools. But there was an interesting thing that happened, and I think happens a lot. It's more common than I think we would like to embrace. We don't really actually talk about the logistics of college attendance very much. We take a stance of very like motivational, especially amongst historically underrepresented first generation folks. We want to encourage them that they can do it, right? That they're smart. These kind of just generally abstract kind of senses. You're smart, you can do it, you should go to college. And then once they get the opportunity, the meat of that conversation is missing, right? There's which is, what does it mean to go to college? What are majors? How do I get there? These are the things that I was considering. Like, so say I got accepted to UC Santa Cruz. I've never been to Santa Cruz. How do I get to Santa Cruz? Do you pay for it or do I pay for it? When does that happen? Is that the first day of school, a weekend before? Is that immediately? These sound like they might be silly questions at this point, but they were the questions that I had and could not get answered because I had no one to ask. And this is to say nothing of the financial aid idea. Had zero idea about where to even start in trying to understand how you get your $15,000 a year plus whatever is the rest for cost of attendance.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that point up, because who's talking to students about this? What's the, we're making all these assumptions as educators that students know about this, that they've heard it through the grapevine, that they hear it from each other, that their parents are talking about it, that they have some sort of sounding board for this. And you're right, those are very important questions that young people of all ages who have, if they haven't experienced that transition, that experience, that educational route, how are you supposed to know if you aren't having that conversation with someone? So I love that you brought that point up. So no, was anybody having those conversations with you? Were you just on your own with it?
I was more or less on my own with it. Again, and part of the difficult part, which I'm sure a lot of the folks on the line can understand, you don't really even know what questions to ask. You just know that you don't know what you're supposed to be doing next. So like literally, and I'll tell the names of the schools just to make it real. Like I got accepted to UC Santa Cruz and to Howard University at HBCU in Washington, DC. And I legit had no idea what I was supposed to do next. And I was asking around to folks. I was like, "Hey, so such that I choose one of these schools, like, what does that mean? What do I do? Like, I understand they want me to send like an SIR, but what's the? I don't understand what's supposed to be happening here." So, upon like a lot of failed like starts and trying to get that conversation going, I realized that if I was gonna have to stumble through the process. That whatever is gonna be a lot of guesswork. I was likely gonna guess wrong. Those wrong guesses were likely gonna be costly. So if I was going to stumble my way through it, I may as well stumble my way through it in a local context for as least money as possible. And that is what brought me to my first community college, which was Cerritos College in South LA. So I started.
Pause for a moment there because I'm curious about that transition, right? So life is all about transitions. That's why transfer is about everything, because life is about transitions. How did you hear about community college? How did you know that was an option? Because that's an interesting jump there too, where, okay, I don't quite understand what this 4-year college thing is or what these different universities are and what they expect of me and what the next steps are. How did you know that community college might be an option or a cheaper option or a good option for you?
Absolutely. Well, and there's a few interesting points there. The simple answer is my cousin was there. So I had a cousin who was a year ahead of me who graduated and was at Cerritos College running track. And I was like, well, that's good. I can go hang out with Josh. And start there and figure it out. And again, the discourse around community college, at least from a recent high school graduate friend, is taking classes. I'm taking classes at Cerritos or whatever. Which is, again, I think that's an important framing because it's not, there's no trajectory there. There's not a clear enunciation of any like goal. Like you're just saying, I'm there and classes are being taken. And that's what's happening right now.
Another assumption we make as educators, right? We're like, oh, they're going there for a reason. Students are not thinking about transfer in that way. Students are like, I'm going to take a class, I'll sign up, or yeah.
Yeah, you understand some baseline things. What is full time? And so be full time because you need to be full time for reasons. And take classes. Now, which of those classes, how they align on what trajectory, if they're satisfying what prerequisites for what major, to satisfy which transfer requirements for which institution, doesn't really come up. Now, I would argue that the job of the person's job who this is to kind of communicate this information to the academic counselor, the tricky part about that is that they're overworked, underpaid, and far too few to accommodate the large number of people that they have enrolled. I'll transition to that point a little later on, but that was just the first of many community colleges that I attended. Another point that I think gets undersold. So I bounced from, so I had credits from Santa Monica College in high school, as well as Long Beach City. I started at Cerritos and then went over to ELAC. I did LACC the first time, and then I did Coastline, which was online. That was not great. And then bounced back to LACC to finish. Many of these are overlapping. So be enrolled at Cerritos and ELAC at the same time because it's hard to get classes. So even if you if you set your mind, I need 12 units, that is 4 classes. I need 4 classes. So as I get 4 classes, I only got 2 at LACC because I couldn't crash. I didn't get accepted to the crashing. And then this school started a little later, so I could see about crashing these other classes. And so just to kind of get your 12, because you don't know why you need 12 per se, but you just know that you need 12. That's full time. What happens is you spend a lot of time transit. Parking is expensive, and tickets for that parking are also more expensive. To just try to get the thing done. All the while I was working. Right, I started working a job out of high school at Foot Locker in the Lakewood Mall. If we have any people who are South LA aware, I started working a job at Disneyland in Tomorrowland, and then I worked a job in Yorba Linda at what was Singular at the time and became AT&T at a call center. And I was working a job at a credit union north of the 10, all the while doing this full-time like college student thing, which is another part that really doesn't get explored as much. No people, it would be great. I dreamt of the day. I was like, wouldn't it be nice if I could just like go to school, like, and just let that be the thing that I did? Like, how well could I do? I was just able to like take these classes and not have to worry about rent, gas, insurance, flat tires. I could just read the things, write the stuff, and get the grades. But that wasn't an option for me at the time. To transition into financial aid aspect before I get into my transfer, the actual transfer journey, I'll say that I didn't really realize that I could get financial aid until like year 6 of my 10-year journey. This was a 10-year journey, by the way. I graduated in 2004 and I transferred in 2014, which is why that shirt says 2014. And it was around year 6 that I realized that I didn't have to pay tuition, that I could qualify for at the time the Board of Governors fee waiver. It just never came up, and no one brought up the FAFSA. So I was paying tuition as a poor student. That's why I was working, so I could pay tuition because that's what you had to do. It was cheaper than UCLA or CSU. But eventually,
but you were balancing 4 million things at once. Oh my gosh. And you're talking to someone who was on the 20-year plan. So the 10-year plans sounds nice. I feel you. Oh, wow. So renegotiating time, renegotiating schedules, balancing all of that with work schedules, with school schedules.
Oh yeah.
Strange question in here, or to throw another kind of wrench in the business. Did you have a career? At that point, did you have a sense of what you wanted to do? Were you shooting towards something at all, or were you kind of just scrambling to stay as a student in school? Did someone talk to you about transfer? Did you have a sense that maybe this was leading to something or a career in mind? Or were you just kind of going, I should be in school, I'll stay in school and figure it out as I go?
Gotcha. Yeah, eventually, I think after the first year, I did decide on the idea of transferring as a goal, right? So my overall goal was to have a bachelor's degree, and over time, I did come to understand that this is one means by which to kind of attain that as a first step. You go to community college, and then you can transfer after you're done. So I did hear about the IGETC, and so I was like, cool, take all the classes on the IGETC, transfer to the school, get the undergrad degree. Tricky part is there's some nuances there that never really get communicated. So the IGETC course does not equal 60 units. I did not know this until it was very late. It made me lose a year.
For those who aren't in California, can you explain what the IGETC is?
Basically, a set of courses that you would have to take, and they're not specific courses, but types of courses under different like genres. That you would have to take in order to establish minimum eligibility for transfer into the University of California or the CSU on this path. So that's what the IGETC is. It's a sheet of paper. Everyone knows the sheet of paper. And you go through and you're like, did I take any of these classes? Okay, I'm done with that one, done with that one, done with that one. I need this one, this one, this one. And so, I was doing that. Those entire courses, that's not just what you need to do. You need to do that and then also get 60 units, at least 60 units. And then the timing is jazzy. It's doable. Once you know it, it's like, oh yeah, no, I can absolutely do that. But if you're guessing through it, it can be very confusing and you will guess wrong. And each one of those wrong guesses will cost you a full year. So just as a point of frustration, but we're working on it. So
that you need somebody to talk you through it, right? So did your cousin do that? Like, what did you discover that? Because that is very satisfying, going through that piece of paper and finally realizing you have a path. You're like, oh, cool. If I do this, then this. But when did that happen for you? Like in the process?
Later. So it only happened, and before I get to the intervention, but I also just want to point, majors are can really trip folks up. I think everyone starts off as a psych major for whatever reason. And in the transfer paradigm, you're transferring into majors. So before it's just like general interest. Oh, my general interest is my major. On the tail end, it becomes more of a strategic decision. If folks were to know that on the front end, it might make different decisions about what they're saying their majors are. But the conversation around what is a major just never really happens. People just ask you, and you don't want to sound dumb. So you're like, a word that sounds like major. English, poli-sci, sociology, and that's it. It sounds dumb, but I'm a linguistics major. And I started saying linguistics after psychology, because as you know, the question path goes like this. So what's your major? Oh, I'm majoring in psychology. Oh, what do you hope to do with that? And I'm like, well, I don't want to answer that one. I don't know. I'm just here, guy. Get out of my life. But if you say linguistics, they'll stop asking questions.
Because no one knows what it is, or why?
They don't know what that is. So they're like, oh, that sounds,
this person knows what they're doing.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, you should think that. Yeah, stop asking questions. I in fact did turn out that I enjoy linguistics. I got a BA in linguistics. I'm getting a PhD in linguistics. I currently have a master's in linguistics. I like linguistics. I'm going to learn linguistics. I didn't know that I would like it when I said it, but it worked out. Apart from that. Intervention. So I went to the transfer center on one day, and I found a representative from the Center for Community College Partnerships at Los Angeles City College, and they really helped out by giving me a lot of brass tack stuff. One, it was one of the first times that I actually saw a person at the school that I wanted to be at who had done the thing that I was looking to do. Because if you just ask the counselor, sadly, they'll tell you no one gets into the UCs. That's their general posture. And so they'll either direct you elsewhere or just kind of not engage with what are the resources to kind of help you to accomplish your goals. So in this case, it's very easy to believe that no one gets in because I don't see anyone getting in. But to see a peer mentor, a current UCLA student who had transferred to UCLA, they're trying to help me to kind of do it too. Help me to, one, visualize that this is something that is possible, and two, get the logistical help, which was the thing that I needed. How specifically do I get from here to there? Tell me what I need to do and I'll do it, because at this point I'm just guessing, and I'm not necessarily guessing very well. And so they really helped to turn it around, that entire infrastructure, the peer mentor in the local sense, having continual point of contact to really engage, ask my questions, get clarification, the Saturday academies that brought you to the campus. I'd never really been on the campus. As I say, I want to go to a place, I'm from LA, like I'm just down the street. I could go, it's public. I don't go because why would I go? Like, I can't just, where am I going? So
it's no structure. There's no, and for those who don't know, CCCP, the Center for Community College Partnership, I'll put some links in the comment sections below, but they have an incredible infrastructure of peer-to-peer support systems that bring students to local community colleges to do exactly what Jamaal is talking about. Talk to students, share their experience. These are incredibly well-trained peer mentors. They go through a really intense training. They work with admissions, so they know some of the ins and outs of the process. They are students themselves, so they can talk about the culture and the experience and the pitfalls and the things they wish they'd known before they got there. So you're getting this inside scoop. from students who've actually been in your shoes, been at that college, maybe even went to the community college that you're at. Generally, they try to place peer mentors who've actually gone to the community college you're at. It's an incredible program. And if you haven't looked at this for a model, if you're a student listening to this and you haven't checked out if CCCP is at your community college, check it out. If you're a staff member listening to this and you haven't looked at the Center for Community College Partnership model, or read Power to a Transfer, a book written by many of the folks who created CCCP, please start researching this, because it is an amazing best practice in terms of peer-to-peer mentor programs, establishing transfer receptive culture, both at the 2-year university or the community college, and also the 4-year or university that the students may be transferring to. So just a little plug for CCCP, because they are so stellar, and we'll probably get to talk to them about them a little bit more in the future. But I just want folks to understand, when you're talking about this rich experience with a peer mentor, it's because that was an intentional, thoughtful, planned structure that was put in place to help scaffold the transfer experience and the transfer receptiveness prior to even getting to the UCLA campus.
Absolutely. And it functioned to do just that, both in the individual peer mentor and that continual engagement. I think it was important that they weren't just there one time in the spring to yield or one time in November to recruit, but that they were there weekly. Like there was like a day where they would come and sit there for a time, and that if you wanted to meet with them, you could. And I did regularly. And then there were campus visits, right? Saturday academies where you would go once a quarter or so to be on campus and do workshops around stuff that was going to be relevant to help you transfer. And of course, also to meet other folks who were in the same boat, looking to try to do the same thing, so you can build community in that regard. And then, of course, the summer programs are robust. And so I participated in STP after I found it. And that was a great opportunity where I could just be on campus for 5 days, like live in the dorm. So we got it away from the abstract. You can theoretically be a Bruin in exchange that idea for this is what it feels like. Right. This is the dining hall that you'd be eating at if you lived at this dorm. These are the stairs you would climb to get to this building for those classes. It really put the rubber to the road and made all the difference for me to kind of maintain the momentum, keep the drive going, because I had a specific goal that I was shooting for. I knew what I needed to do to get there, and I just had to work the plan, and it worked out, thankfully. So I applied, was admitted, and transitioned in to UCLA soon thereafter, and after, of course, engaged with the Center for Community College Partnerships, and was hired to do the exact same work that I benefited from, which was to be the LACC peer mentor for my 2 years at UCLA.
I love it. See, there is something about this full circle of the transfer community wanting to give back and pay back. It's like, because we've been through the challenges. And I want to focus a little bit on the challenges for a second, and then the resiliency and kind of work to stay motivated and keep you kind of powering through, because the transfer journey doesn't end at transfer, right? It ends, well, who knows, career, grad school, PhD, and we'll hear a little bit about your experience in that. But so you've mentioned a lot of challenges of the transfer kind of pathway, right? And this is in a state that actually has a really pretty smooth-ish pathway, comparatively. So the challenges so far, like not having a sounding board or a kind of a foundation of information on kind of what colleges, why I'm choosing one college over another, what the foundations of financial aid are, how do I navigate those, how do I work through those, crafting it on your own, sort of pulling it together and sticking it together by swirling around and transferring around at different schools and crafting your own path and your own journey, when there was one that could have worked had somebody just explained it and sat down with you and sort of said, like, here's the thing. And then even within that, there there are hurdles, right? Because even though the IGETC is really clear and that you can follow it, it's, what major are you picking? Did you pick the right one? Did you just pick one by happenstance? And then there's the financial and the just travel hurdles of getting to where you need to go, finding the right people. You were really fortunate in the sense that you found a mentor right away and you found a program that worked for you. But obviously, students sometimes navigate around without finding that for many, many years or never find it.
This is the end of part 1 of our videocast and podcast. Please stay tuned for part 2.
Thank you so much for listening. To continue the transfer conversation, be sure to join the Transfer Nation Facebook group at tinyurl.com/wearetransfernation. You can also follow us on Instagram at wearetransfernation and on Twitter at transferpride. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at tinyurl.com/tnationtube. If you have ideas for future episodes of the Transfer Nation videocast and podcast, please email us at wearetransfernation@gmail.com. We can't wait to continue celebrating all things transfer with you. And as always, in Transfer Pride.